welcome. We got a chance to meet everybody last night or say hello this morning. Everybody probably knows I'm Kathy Broskin. And you also met my co-PI, Brian Frainer. We're very excited that you're all here. We're excited about the papers. Wonderful conversation started last night, and we think they'll continue over the next few days. A few people asked last night, and so we talked about this, but Brian and I wanted to explain a little bit about where this project started. And, we were trying to figure out last night when Brian and I first met, and we don't actually remember. Somewhere at a Western History Association meeting or American Society for Environmental History, we don't really remember, but we met. And I had assigned Brian's book, Finding Oil, to my undergraduate class. And I asked Brian to come down from Oklahoma State and talk with the students. And we started talking about a project we might collaborate on, and more specifically something on the Great Plains. We both felt that a re-exploration of the environmental history of the region in which we both lived provided a great chance for innovative scholarship. So we met with an NSF officer in 2015 when ASEH was in Washington. And they seemed to like the idea, gave us some suggestions, and we later submitted our application for a workshop grant. Much of it written by my graduate student, Matt Corpolago, written very well, obviously. And we were happy to get the grant, and thrilled that all of you joined us by submitting proposals and are part of this today. So, our project seeks to redefine the North American Great Plains from western Texas to southern Canada. For much of the world, this region is framed in the structure of ecological disaster. If you say the Great Plains, for many people, the first image is something from the Dust Bowl. And we thought it might be time to do something different. So we proposed building a more complex narrative around the elemental and persistent themes of water, grasses, animals, and energy, all of which we think are interrelated. But also perhaps showing how shifting technology sustained human life, advanced diverse societies, and altered human relations with the region's myriad ecologies. As most of you know, the field of environmental history emerged in the 1970s, and certainly Donald Worcester's Dust Bowl became one of the foundational books. It's a work that I know Brian and I have discussed that we greatly admire. Building on the work of earlier scholars such as Walter Prescott Webb and James Malin, Worcester placed humans' relationships with nature at the core of the regional story. His groundbreaking study focused on human choice and indicted an exploitive capitalist culture that pushed farmers to cultivate marginal lands and greatly contributed to the titular disaster. Many subsequent environmental histories of the plains, such as the work of Jeff Comfort and others, have similarly focused on these episodes of crisis. And while important and informative, such works have understated the complexities of both human ingenuity and the environment as an actor of historical change. So the diverse peoples did not interact with their surroundings in a singular way. They often adjusted their methods of research usage through technological developments. We also thought that for environmental historians, regionalism offers a set of ideas prioritizing place as a factor in history. For us, bioregionalism, writ large, allows us to transcend national borders. Regionalism assumes an intimate connection between place and culture, and argues that places viewed at various scales have distinct characteristics that differentiate them from other places. So this project's exploration of regionalism with regard to the Great Plains will consider whether specific exists. I can really talk, it's early. Consider whether there exist specific issues and characteristics that separate this area from places west of the Rockies or east of the Mississippi River. And in particular, the edited volume, which we plan to produce from this workshop, seeks to counter earlier notions of the Plains region by questioning whether a key characteristic of the area must be a perpetual sense of disaster. As we know, people have lived on the plains for millennia, and the best way to understand the environmental history of the region is through their adaptations to the challenging environments over the past 400 years, adaptations by indigenous peoples, as well as European and American settlements. So, contemplating these ideas, I remembered a quotation from a D.H. Lawrence essay called Spirit of Place that Dan Flores had cited. Lawrence wrote, quote, "Every continent has its own great spirit of place. Every people is polarized in some particular locality, which is home, the homeland. Different places on the face of the earth have different vital effluence, different vibration, different chemical exhalation, different polarity with different stars. Call it what you like, but the spirit of place is a great reality." In his essay, Flores added, quote, "The most important thing about spirit of place is that cultural values and human imagination determine it as much as landscape does, that it exemplifies history's greater lesson. Everything is always changing. Everything is always changing." So as we move forward, what will our collaborative efforts tell us about the spirit of place, of a place which we call the Great Plains? How will we take the component parts, or the diverse idiosyncratic stories that each of our participants is sharing, to tell a more compelling, more comprehensive, more integrated narrative, more dynamic narrative of these varied bioregions that reveal the Great Plains' ever-changing history. We're really excited to see what happens, and I am now going to turn things over to Brian.
Great. Hello again, everybody. Super excited that you're all here. So thank you all for being here. I want to, some of you have heard through email that I'm a longtime resident of Oklahoma who has recently departed. And as a result, a lot of the logistical details unfolded here. So I want to thank my friend and colleague, Kathy Brosnan, University of Oklahoma, for hosting this event, as well as Matt Corpolongo, who, as Kathy said, did a lot of the initial work on this grant, and John Buchkoski, who has who's live streaming us as we speak. So I'm going to speak about that in a minute. But I did want to mention to folks that we're going to be using Twitter, and occasionally photos will be tweeted. So if you don't, that's cool if you don't want your photo tweeted. Just say, but excuse me, please feel free to say, hey, I'd rather not have my photo taken. Okay, no problem, no problem. But we do want to publicize this endeavor, and it was part of our agreement to publicize it with the NSF. So that's one of the reasons we're doing this. Also, I think it's important to publicize all of our own work. But one person did ask me, so in fact we are live streaming right here. There's a camera, right? But I want to encourage folks, stay loose, okay? Stay loose. This is a workshop. It's not a television show, okay? So stay loose. We are asking you for a kind of conference style presentation, okay? But keep it loose. It's okay. We're all friends here, and we really want to create an energy of exchanging ideas. Okay, so be aware of that, but don't be camera shy, and you might even take a look and smile. So take a look into the camera and smile. So again, basic conference presentation, but don't be afraid to ask questions. We're definitely looking forward to some lively debate. Don't be afraid to engage with each other's ideas, and yes, we can even disagree. We can even disagree. So it's out of this kind of healthy tension, I think, of a workshop that, well, it's what we're looking for. And I think that that kind of disagreement, pushback at times, or agreement will make for the kinds of discussions that will help us forge themes around which we can build this eventual volume. So as Kathy said, the basic idea sprang from this idea of technology and how, in fact, we all know the Dust Bowl story. We all know the important and significant literature that exists on the Dust Bowl. But there have to be other stories there, right? There have to be other stories about life and persistence in the Great Plains. And to me, that's what really animates this project. What are are some of those stories? And you have the beginnings of answers to those questions. So we have these 4 themes: grass, water, animals, and energy. They, I think, are important themes. You may or may not have been hyper aware of those themes when you were writing, right? So you may have been thinking about them, you may not have been. But I'm just going to throw that out there because there's going to be overlap in these themes, and I know I've had informal conversations with a variety of folks last night asking about those themes and asking about how much we're asking you to kind of stick to them. And I think what I would say is that these are ideas that are important for the beginning of framing this workshop. But we may in fact find that those themes fall away. As you build upon your papers and you hear what other people have to say, you may find that new themes emerge. And so we want that, we want to hear that. And we will have a period later in the workshop where we in fact ask that question. What did you hear? What did you hear the themes to be? Do you feel as though these themes are still viable? Should we reframe them in any way? So we're definitely looking forward to hearing your ideas about how effective they are. So as this conversation unfolds, we would ask you all to be very self-consciously evaluating your paper in relation to others. Start thinking now about which paper or papers you hear that speak to your own or don't speak to your own. Where would you cluster your paper in terms of one of those themes, or with which other paper writers would you cluster your ideas? Okay, so think about that, because it will be important, I think, for not only how your paper evolves, but where it fits within a final volume. We look forward to asking you after the workshop to provide us with feedback about your plans for revision. Right? So think about that. We will get back with you to provide you with feedback in terms of where we see your paper headed, but we're going to ask you also to provide us with some idea of what you think you want to revise. Do you want to do more research? Do you feel as though you need to take the paper in a different direction? We want to kind of hear what you have taken from the workshop. Where do you see it headed? And I think one way into answering some of these questions is for everybody to really think long and hard about this idea and this place of the Great Plains. What is the Great Plains? What is the Great Plains? And how does your topic fit within that broader idea? How does your topic illuminate what we reflexively refer to as the Great Plains? Is it in fact a Great Plains topic, or is it a topic that could have unfolded in some other region in perhaps the same way? Probably not. Probably not. Probably your attraction to this workshop and desire to submit a call for papers had something to do with speaking to the sense of place that is the Great Plains. This may or may not be helpful, but in some of our early conversations, Kathy and Monty, I had just seen the movie Nebraska with Bruce Dern, and I couldn't get it out of my head. If you haven't seen it, it's somewhat of an indie film. It's shot in black and white, and it's about this man who's advanced in years, and he wins one of these mail-in Publishers Clearinghouse sweepstakes types of events, and he leaves Montana to go 750 miles to Lincoln, Nebraska to collect his prize, which may or may not actually be there. But the story on one level is the son is trying to get him off of the road. He's walking. The son's trying to get him off the road and get him back home. But the movie depicts in black and white these really beautiful scenic images of plains landscape. And I think that there is a quality about that movie that, at least for whatever reason, seems to be emblematic of the plains. Not just the landscape itself, but the people who reside on the plains, oftentimes in economically disenfranchised communities that have seen their better days. Not always, but sometimes urban locations are facing these fundamental questions of how they create sustainable, viable communities, whether it's the energy sector or a kind of post-agricultural economy. Where do they go? What do their futures look like? So this is one story of the plains, but it's not the only story. You have many others. Technology may be at the heart of your story in terms of adaptation and persistence on the plains. But to speak to Kathy's point, I think that we all have an opportunity here, perhaps to tell stories of declension, but also to think about environmental history in a more complex way and think about how millions of people continue to survive and thrive, perhaps, in a region where resources are going to be at the key of that survival. So, with that, we'll end these opening comments and remember